So masking. We don't know what the definition is, but Dr. Miguel, what do you think masking is? How would you describe it?
Well, masking is a collection of coping mechanisms that we just create to protect ourselves from a world that probably feels a little bit unsafe, because many of us with ADHD and any neurodivergent flavors of brains have this sense that maybe we don't fit in the world as it is. Our nervous system is probably quite sensitive to a lot of things that maybe a neurotypical nervous system, a neurotypical body, a neurotypical brain may not be so sensitive to. And we are so attuned to tiny little things that, again, for a neurotypical brain might just pass by and they don't even blink. And for us, they might be devastating. So we put this mask on, we put this suit on, we put this kind of like smile on. You know, it can take like so many different variations. And I think that to me is masking. And we're probably going to talk about how it makes you feel as well. I don't know what you feel. What is masking for you?
What is masking for me? Pretending. Yes, pretending. And also, but not even knowing you're pretending, you know, a lot of the time. Like, obviously, when I got my diagnosis, when I heard the word masking, I'd never really heard of it before. I never really knew what it meant. And I just had this big realization that I'd been pretending to be many different people, but who I truly was. But actually, I didn't know who that was still in that moment.
Yeah, exactly.
I knew had a bit of intuition around, you know, moments where maybe I'd want to make a different decision or, do something differently. And I hadn't. So I suppose there was like this, I'd have moments in my life where I could relate to not listening to a voice, but it just felt like I was playing roles, basically, like acting my whole life. But because I hadn't worked out who I was and got still enough to figure that out.
Yeah, and that makes complete sense. And also about that, it's not like you do it consciously. It's not like you just switch on this thing as I'm just going to be like the really cute Rosie today. I'm just going to be like the really serious Miguel today. It's almost like it's activated by default. So, you know, like for years and years, I did that at work as well. And I had this idea of, you know, what meant to be professional. And then I didn't want to step out of that, even though I probably did a lot more than other people did anyway, other colleagues, because they had, you know, that perception of what is to be professional in an office environment or in a corporate kind of job is so ingrained in people that even if you're neurotypical, you almost like wear a mask anyway when you go into an office just to fit in. But yeah, for me it was that, and I'm thinking I cannot really blend what I want to do with my life with what this job is, and there's a lack of alignment in there, but I'm just going to go with it because that's what people do. You have a job and you turn up and you study and you do things, and you don't kind of like think about it in a reflective way until you do, and then you realize, oh my God, for like all those years I was just doing X, Y, and Z, and turning up with like a smiley face and putting up with comments from people or whatever, and not actually doing anything about it. And now that I decide to just be me, whatever people might think about me, and it doesn't mean that you don't care, and it doesn't mean that you don't feel it, but it means that you choose to just be yourself without having to wear any kind of disguise to the world. You almost think, how did I do it otherwise? You know, it's almost like once you see things in a different way, you cannot unsee them. And it's a tricky process, I guess, getting to the point that you can reflect on those things that you've done in the past and realize that you have done certain things or you haven't done certain things and why you have or haven't done them. So there's a lot to unpack, I think, in this episode around those things.
I think, you know, the workplace has definitely got to be a huge one for people. And, you know, I see it with clients all the time. And I think it's why we get to those points in our lives where we've mastered so long in like these corporate environments, or not even corporate, whatever it is you're trying to be, and say, you know, what environment you're trying to be in the work environment. And then it's sort of like if you've got ADHD and you've been masking for that long, I don't know about you, but it just felt like I'd have these moments where I just want to break free and I couldn't control, how I felt about a place and how I felt about a job or a relationship. I mask so much in relationships. And then that's where the impulsivity would just happen. And I'd just like break free and go make like drastic decisions. And then the fear would come in and I'd revert back again because I'd be like, actually, I wanted this feeling of freedom. I think I felt trapped. I think that's probably a great description of actually how it can feel. You feel quite suffocated and trapped, I think, when you're masking for a long period of time. Like if it's in a long, you're not even aware of it that you're masking. But I also think as well, like it's in the decisions you make, isn't it? Like I know that I chose certain relationships as well because I was masking, because I thought that certain, relationships or getting married or labels would actually make me feel like I belonged in the world. And I felt normal, and I thought I would feel normal. So I think when you don't know and you're unaware, it's like a huge impact on your life and your decisions that you make. And that's what I felt as well when I got diagnosed, is I'd felt that because I'd masked, because I just kept trying to fit in and didn't know, why I felt different, is that I'd that first instinct is like, oh God, I've look at all that time I wasted. Obviously, you don't want to go down that route and ruminate, but that's how it can feel if you're not aware of your of masking. That's why I think it's so important to talk about. But people do get quite overwhelmed. I think once you get your diagnosis, you're like, okay, now I'm gonna unmask. But how the hell do I do that when I don't even know who I am or what I want? Because
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it does
forever
put a
it's
lot
been
of
about
pressure on yourself, especially because we are raising awareness of ADHD and other neurotypes. And in doing that, you almost feel part of it is like a healthy pressure to kind of explore yourself. But in another, the flip side to that is maybe a not so healthy pressure to maybe do what other people are doing because you feel, okay, well, so and so is going on about unmasking, and maybe I should unmask as well. And how do I do that? And so it raises quite deep questions about who you are and what you want to do with your life, and what really showing yourself in the real light of who you are is all about. And so you can get quite emotionally exhausted just from rehearsing what the appropriate responses are going to be to situations, and it can get you into a state of hyper awareness of other people's perceptions of yourself, which are already a thing anyway in ADHD and also in autism. And this kind of like state of hypervigilance or being like a meerkat, just like always scanning and thinking what is going on around me. So if on top of that you're putting pressure on yourself to be yourself, it's kind of like counterintuitive, but you're putting pressure on yourself to just be the real self. If,
yeah.
if that doesn't come out naturally, it needs to come out naturally. So I think the trick in a way is just to ease that pressure and let that real self, let that authenticity actually come out naturally as opposed to being forced. Because a lot of the time I kind of like see people talking about unmasking, and it may be that that's how they are doing it, but it does feel like a little bit forced. This is how I unmask. Okay, well, in a way, it's great for you, but everybody's going to do it at their own pace and in their own way without needing a pattern that this is how it happens. There's no guidebook really on unmasking. It just
No.
happens to different people in completely different ways. And it could be quite subtle for some people. It could be completely life changing for somebody else.
100%. I'm so glad you said that because this is different to any topic I think we've spoken about. It's, there isn't like, right, step one, this is this, this is how it's going to look, this is how it's going to feel, unmasking. And I think the key there is in the word as well, unmasking, instead of, I know a lot of people use I'm unmasked, but also like for me personally, I think the unmasking is because it's constant, because I do think you can still go into different situations that maybe you've not been in since you've started to unmask, and you can revert back, which we spoke about in some of our earlier episodes. Is like, different situations might trigger you to mask that you haven't tried since your diagnosis and had this awareness. And it is sometimes it can feel a bit like going two steps. Yeah, what's it called? 2 steps forward, 10 steps back.
Yeah.
I love that you said well about the false, because again, with ADHD, we do expect to do all or nothing a lot of the time.
Yeah. Yeah, and it can feel that you're not doing as well as, and we have a tendency to stress anyway and to overthink.
Hmm.
So if you, and the brain in a way is a prediction machine, is always predicting what's going to happen. It's always a step ahead thinking, okay, so I'm going to pick up this mug now to drink coffee and decaf. So he's thinking, okay, so now I'm gonna need to do this. I'm feeling the need to drink. Am I really thirsty or not? It's just predicting so many different things that we are not conscious of, and some things that we might be conscious of, and we are analyzing. So in a way, this prediction network that we have is a series of different parts in the brain, is working over time in ADHD as it is anyway.
Yeah.
And reading social cues isn't always intuitive. So this can create a bit of a feedback loop if we are then saying to ourselves, okay, am I doing the masking properly or not? Am I showing myself as my authentic self or not? And putting pressure on that, as opposed to, in a way, if it's authentic, you shouldn't really need to think about it.
No,
It's just coming out.
exactly.
It's coming out as
Yeah.
it is. You're not blocking anything. It's just letting go of what people may be thinking about you. Some people are going to like you. Some people are going to hate you. People are going to think you're like silly or whatever. It doesn't matter. So if you need to let go of all of that to be authentic. But if you're holding back and over analyzing, this feedback loop that you're creating in the brain, self-monitoring yourself, being self-conscious of how you're unmasking, how you're letting go of that inhibition that is the masking. Basically, you're inhibiting something, you're holding back on something, and the unmasking is letting go of that inhibition. If you're self-monitoring yourself all the time, then that's going to spike your cortisol, because it's going to put you in a fight or flight kind of situation. It's going to say to your brain, this masking business is actually a bit of a threat. It's not making me feel comfortable. It's something's blocking me from actually just doing it in the way that I was expecting to do it. So I keep analyzing what might be the prediction, what is happening next, what are people thinking of me, what am I thinking of myself if I'm trying to let go of my mask when I'm looking at this camera where I see myself. I try not to look at myself, because otherwise I'm so self-conscious that I'm just like
I,
thinking, oh my God,
I hate that on
I
the
look
call.
awful. I don't like my hair. Or I'm too
I'm doing it
hot. I'm
now.
too, whatever. I just, my brain is like going on like a washing machine on a spin cycle. And I need to not look at myself while I'm talking, because otherwise it just doesn't happen. So there's so many of those things that can actually spike your stress levels. And that's precisely what you want to avoid with unmasking. The whole thing is that, you want to relax into the person that is there behind the mask, and that is at the core of who you really are. So, it's
Yeah.
actually funny to look at it from a neuroscience perspective, how that fits into that potential stress feedback loop, not doing it for the right reasons. And I think the right reasons are going to be always completely different for everybody. And the way you go about it is going to be completely different to everybody as well.
And again, that goes back to a feeling, doesn't it? With the science you've just described, like if your cortisol's going up and you're stressing out about, oh my God, I'm trying to unmask, that is so the opposite. It's like masking again, isn't it? Really, but it's just a different way. It's a nervous system thing again, isn't it? Like if it feels like, that feeling when you've been with people that you know that you've been yourself around, but in the moment you may not even know that, right? But you come home and you feel really good, and you don't feel like you might feel tired, but like in a night, like you said, being tired, but in a nice way, tired, not exhausted, burnt out, tired. But you
Yeah.
feel like you've filled your cup, and you feel quite inspired. The next day on a Monday, I wake up and I'm like so energetic for work. Versus when you've been somewhere, maybe it's a work environment or whatever it is, around other people that you don't really know, and you've masked, and you come home. It's a different feeling, isn't it? It's all about that, how your nervous system feels in that moment, I suppose, and how hard you've had to work in that environment. So that's quite a good
Yeah,
feel
and it's
for it.
also a lot about people pleasing, which is another thing that we've discussed in other episodes, and about this fawning that we described in minute
I
55
still
of
know
like.
what that is.
So go back to that definition of fawning. So basically, it's kind of like just people pleasing, complete kind of like bending over backwards to please somebody, and in terms of instead of actually confronting somebody, and that's it's often a trauma response as well. So it's a stress response, a trauma response. There could be a bit of a freeze response as well. So you don't do anything as opposed to complete people please. And it's driven by in a way, the vagus nerve. We've talked about it. The whole of the nervous system, the autonomic branch, so the bit of the nervous system that is doing things on your behalf without you having to think about them. Like your breathing, your heart beating, picking up on pressure from touching objects, and all of this kind of stuff. All of that information that is coming into your brain from the environment is subconscious. You're running things in an autopilot kind of way. And particularly the autonomic nervous system, I see it as a bit of a radar. It's basically picking up all these signals from around us, and letting us then make decisions based on those decisions. And this could be, even though it's not the autonomic nervous system, it's the enteric nervous system, which is around the gut. It could be why we have these gut feelings as well. It's that neurotransmitters and various other molecules that may be produced by gut bacteria as well, and yourself combined get to the brain, make you feel a certain way, might be linked with intuition as well. So all of those kind of feelings are linked with authenticity, with stress. And sometimes we are afraid to act on a hunch, and then we people please instead. Or we are afraid to follow our instinct as to whether somebody is somebody we can trust, or we can enjoy having a relationship with, and then we do nothing. We just freeze. So another kind of like stress response. And all of these are interesting from the point of view that I see a lot of parallels between unmasking and coming out if you are LGBTQ, because in a way it's the same kind of thing. You kind of think, what are people going to think about me if I tell them I'm gay? What are they going to think about me if I tell them actually I feel more like queer than gay, because that's kind of like a new identity. It's always been there, but it's just not only about, oh, I like men. It's more like, it it pervades through other aspects of your identity as well, and it's not just about preferring sex with men. All of those oh, if you're a lesbian, or if you're trans, so all of those things, being completely frank and honest about that, and not just pretending you're not gay, or pretending you're not, whatever it is, whatever flavor in that soup of letters. And I think there's a lot of parallels between coming out and coming out as neurodivergent, coming out as ADHD, because some people prefer to actually say, okay, well, it's part of my life. I don't want to share it with everybody. Some I prefer to keep it masked, and then maybe just keep it to a circle of people that I really trust, and I feel that my nervous system is not going to react, and it's not going to go into a major kind of like fight or flight response and stress me out completely, because I don't know whether I can trust them or not. And some people might say, okay, well, I've just had a diagnosis. I just want to share it with the whole world and go on Instagram and do a live about it, and again, there's no right or wrong. It's like coming out as gay. Can just decide, okay, well, I've just realized I'm gay. I'm just going to say it to everybody. I'm going to say it on social media, and I'm going to share it with all my work colleagues. Or you could keep it quite private, and not either, or not one or the other is wrong. It's just your choice as well. So again, it goes back to doing things at your own pace and in a way that makes you feel safe. And it's not always going to be the same for everybody.
No. So I'm really interested then. So when you came to your ADHD diagnosis, did you feel like, because you'd gone through something where you had to unmask already, did it feel easier? Did you feel like you even had to do any more unmasking? Like, how did that plan out for you?
Yeah, I felt quite familiar in a way. Like, for me, it wasn't like I suddenly just realized I was gay. I think I was like, I was born gay anyway, or queer, or whatever it is. It's not like I didn't have like a massive epiphany that I just like suddenly thought, oh my God. But I kind of like played around with girls and everything else during my teens, and like I had like some girlfriends and, whatever. So, and at one point I thought, I just think I'm just like not interested in girls in that way.
Mhm.
Like I love girls, but like not like sexually. And so it wasn't like a big thing, but it did remind me a little bit of like having to make that choice of who to share it with. Is it like something that I want to keep kind of just for a small circle of people, or is it something that I want to share with everybody? And just as I did when I came out, well, which is like so many years ago, I just didn't think of actually keeping it from the world. I just thought, this is me. And if you like it, you like it. And if you don't, stuff it, then just like go and look for somebody else, because this is me. This is how I can. This is my flavor. And if you don't like it, then there are other flavors out there. Go and search for something else. It wasn't as difficult for me, but I still see the difficulties even within the community, because everybody, again, if you're not part of the LGBTQ community, you might have an idea of what that feels like. And there are loads of riffraffs within the community with people kind of, they could be like some gay people who are not trans friendly, or there could be some gay people who are against gay people who are too feminine, or you see what I mean? So there's all of these kind of little negative attitudes within the community. And what I saw as well within the neurodivergent community is that there are those kind of like things going on as well. So it's not
Yeah.
all just like love and light and you just come out and everybody loves you. There's going to be loads of different things that you probably don't expect, like people thinking, oh, you're not neurodivergent enough, or you haven't got your symptoms are not strong enough for you to have had a diagnosis, or there's all of these kind of like things that you don't expect. And I think that is the thing that I found the most familiar. The fact that I just thought, okay, I wasn't expecting to find all of this negativity in the LGBTQ world. And don't get me wrong, it's not all negativity. There's loads of positives as well. But like, I wasn't expecting to find those things. I was expecting everybody to just be, maybe it's just me being, I don't know, too naive. I was expecting everybody just to be nice to each other. And the reality is that there are people who just might expect you to be a certain way. And that's, for me, another reason why you just need to stick to your guns and actually say, actually, I'm going to just be me. My unmasking means that I'm going to have some boundaries as well, and to protect me from those who think they have the higher moral ground because they use better terminology than me, because they use the right words and I don't use the right words or something. You see a lot of this on social
Yeah.
media as
Oh
well.
my God,
Oh,
I
you
get
shouldn't
pulled up all the
say,
time with this stuff.
yeah, you shouldn't say neurodiverse, you should say neurodivergent. And I think, okay, fine, I agree with that kind of stuff. We should try and use the right terminology. And that I've seen evolving as well in the LGBTQ community as well, and how names have evolved and how, you describe things in a better way. But equally, everybody's at a different stage of the journey. And they're going to be learning about how to describe themselves and how to describe their lived experience in a slightly different way.
Yeah.
And if you get too constrained as to how everything needs to be communicated, you're kind of not welcoming them on that journey as much as you should. So in a way, you could have an opinion, but it doesn't mean that you need to be super vocal about it and cut people out from growing. That's how I feel.
Yeah, I've really noticed this recently because I said it on the training call, sorry, because I find, especially when it comes to people becoming ADHD coaches, there's a lot of judgment around what courses you should do, like what qualifications you should have, what's legit about being an ADHD coach and stuff like this. And I totally get, people's reasonings behind that. But a lot of the time they're really singling out people, like who have gone down a different route. And my opinion on that is, if we are here to represent difference in the world, because that's ultimately what we're all trying to do, right? Is like
Exactly.
individuality and difference is our mission. Then if we're going to say there's only one way to coach, to train, sorry, as a coach, and that doesn't fit the learning styles of a certain ADHDer that wants to do that, or neurodivergent that wants to do that, then how aren't we just building the same systems that we haven't fitted into before? Because if we don't have different ways of learning or being neurodivergent and how we write the word and explain our stories and all of that, then in my opinion, we are just building more walls and systems again, but just in a just, in a
It's
different way, covering it
completely
up.
exactly. That's exactly how I feel, and I felt the same as well in the nutrition world. So before going into the neuroscience world and microbiome and everything else, I was working in nutrition, training nutrition, and I was working in nutrition clinically, and then a little bit in research as well. And I was following a certain path that was a bit more holistic. And then, like like you'll be aware of in coaching as well, there are different paths, different schools of thought, and different ways to approach things. And it's a bit of a spectrum. You have, within the holistic approach, you have people who are completely on the it's not even holistic, it's just completely alternative. And then you have people who are more mainstream. And I was kind of like in the middle. I was open-minded. And again, I'm thinking, okay, everybody's got the right to go and choose their practitioner. If they think that, I don't know, being on an extreme keto diet or something that is just going to cut out every single bit of fruit and vegetables and everything, and they just want to be carnivore for 6 months because they think that's what they want to do. Okay, let them do it. It's fine. If they've got the money, they want to go to a practitioner to guide them to do that. Fine. They'll probably come off that when they realize that it's not working for them because it's probably too extreme. So
Mm.
I had that kind of mindset, but I kind of like had to remove myself a little bit from I was quite involved politically in an association and so on. I had to remove myself from all of that because it was actually exhausting me.
Yeah,
Because,
there's the masking, right?
well, exactly. I was thinking, okay, I'm trying to be open-minded here, but it's actually a situation where I'm having to wear this mask of just having to smile to everybody. Sometimes I just thought that some of the stuff that I was saying was BS, but I didn't want to think it was right to just call it out because I think it's just when it's BS, people see it's BS. So in a way, I'm thinking unless it's something that I feel that needs to be called out, if somebody's actually being nasty to somebody, or somebody's being openly anti-trans or something, and I think, what is your problem with being
Mm.
anti-trans particularly? What is the problem? What is your problem with trans people? How do you think that
Yeah.
they affect your life? So I'm quite happy to call that out. So, we're always going to be just like, oh, whatever, I'll just smile and be open-minded. I'll call out when there is a need to call out. But
Yeah,
sometimes
'cause
it's
that
just,
suppressing that as an ADHD, that justice sensitivity as well, like, oh my god, that could end up in us boiling us eventually. Do you know
well,
what I mean?
yeah,
Or getting really internally ill, unwell.
exactly. That's why I had to remove myself. And now that I understand the neuroscience of it as well, it's kind of you're socially camouflaging, which is in a way what masking is, which is very expensive cognitively because it relies heavily on the prefrontal cortex. So prefrontal cortex hosts a lot of the executive function. So inhibition, working memory, planning stuff. It's all kind of like this area of the brain behind your forehead and up to the middle of the brain, like the first layer of the brain. And when that is under threat, it activates the hypothalamus, pituitary, the adrenal glands, the HPA axis. And over time, this leads to burnout. And we talked about burnout in the last episode as well.
Yeah.
And when you have this kind of identity confusion, when you're trying to fit in, and then you're getting bombarded by this community that you thought that was embracing you, but at the same time is attacking you for not being either mainstream enough or alternative enough because you're in the middle and you feel that you are pushed to take a position. I just had to remove myself from it because it was actually burning me out and it was making me ill because it was just, I just felt completely exhausted from it. So, and even I had like somatic symptoms. I had like, all of this like chronic pain in my body that was just like the result of the burnout. So I had like, what I went through loads of different doctors, and in the end, I was told I had fibromyalgia because they couldn't find anything really like a autoimmune disorder or anything like that. So they just thought, okay, well, it's fibromyalgia, and there's a potential situation with autoimmunity as well because I have autoimmunity in the eyes. So there may be something autoimmune going on, but I'm pretty sure that all of that was just triggered by this kind of me camouflaging.
Yeah, your identity. It's like, because you know what when you're saying it there, it's like if we find a tribe, right, that we think we now belong after years of not belonging, and then all of a sudden that tribe rejects us. Oh my God, like the RSD, first of all, and then you just feel like you don't belong anywhere. Like that's, and then that goes down the route of loneliness, right? And we know what that can, isolation, loneliness, and what that can do to the
Exactly.
body.
Yeah.
So it just like it's, yeah, that's got to be have a big, huge impact on someone's well-being, especially when, when they think they found it, that this is it, I belong, I finally belong.
Completely. And I'm not saying we just, oh God, we're just focusing on the negatives. I'm
No,
saying that these are tangible things that people maybe are not talking about so much. And,
definitely, I don't
they
think
are
they are.
the elephant in the room. And one of the things is medication. There's so much split with
Yeah,
people's attitudes to medication. It's like you have whole movements of people saying, this is how I got off medication and follow my course now to, so you can do the same. Well, fine. If that's what you want to do, love, go on, wean yourself off medication. I did it. I thought I was being very virtuous because I was thinking, oh, I don't want to be on medication all my life. Why? Because I was feeling, again, I was stuck in the middle. I was thinking, I actually feel better on medication, but I'm getting all of these messages from people saying, oh, you shouldn't be on medication all the time. And I'm a scientist. I'm doing the math. I'm actually looking in, at the evidence and saying, actually, it doesn't seem that bad, but like all of these people are saying, oh my God, I had panic attacks and I had this and I had that. And I thought, well, maybe I had a panic attack last week and maybe it was my medication. Maybe I should not be on the meds. So basically, I just wean myself off only to come back to the meds like 2 years later. And I'm thinking, I'm actually not getting off the meds. I don't give a shit what other people think about it because it's about how I feel. And I have a super healthy lifestyle anyway for my standards. And I take meds. So what? Actually, I feel much better. My emotions are much better regulated. I do things when I need to do them without feeling shit about them. It's not about the productivity, which is very male, boring, white, cisgender, oh, let's just be super productive. No, it's not about that. It's about actually not sitting in front of the computer and thinking, I've just spent 2 hours thinking about sending an email. I had to kind of like, do 5 other things to regulate myself emotionally, because I didn't get to sending the email, including, I don't know, whatever. Just think about anything that you can do in those like 3 hours before you actually do the email. And it
binge
may
eat.
even, yeah, you probably just masturbate 10 times or something
Yeah,
because that's that's something to do because it's like easier than
yeah.
like sending the email. Then it only took you 2 minutes to do the email. Well, all of that, if I take the meds, it just doesn't
Gone.
happen. And I'm thinking, why would I not want to be on meds? And oh, but you can take saffron. Well, I take saffron anyway. It's not like you cannot take saffron and take the meds at the same time. And anyway, I don't want to go on about me, but it's that kind of like thing that you're always going to find something that makes you feel, oh, maybe I don't belong here so much because I thought I belong here, but now I'm being told that this is not the way I should be because I've just been diagnosed, I've been put on meds, and now I'm being made question my choice of being on meds because there's all these people on social media talking about how I should be off the meds because I should be better off. And that is kind of like it's a fuck up mentally.
Well, I think again, it's the extremes, isn't it? Because I know people as well. Like obviously, as you know, I'm off meds at the moment because I've just got loads of stuff to
Yeah.
sift through.
And that's
Like,
fine.
yeah, and but as well, I can see the other side of people that are talking about non-medication options. Which now I'm like, God, because I feel like at the moment I can't take meds because I haven't got the right ones, and it's a process in itself. They're also being outcasted for talking about it on like places like LinkedIn, and I'm like, my God, it's just all of this, judgment on
Yeah,
certain
there is
things. And I'm like,
exactly.
why
And I
can't we
think,
just have both options? Because we're in our lifetime, let's face it, like there may come a time we know that meds can run out, right? We know these things can happen. We know that our life changes. We know that things go on in life. So, one human being is probably going to have times where they're going to be on them and off them for different reasons, right? The chances are quite high, right? That we might have
yeah,
to change meds or something. So at the end of the day, like having information on both sides of the coin is exactly what we need.
well, exactly. And this is it. I think we should make the unmasking safe for people. So if they
Yeah,
choose to say something about, oh, I've just come off my meds and I feel really proud of myself, well, help them celebrate it. Well done. If you're
exactly.
feeling really well off your meds, what is wrong? As opposed to like, oh, you should really be on the meds because like the latest science says like blah blah blah. Well, the latest science doesn't guide my life. I can do what I want with my body and with my brain. And if I feel better just doing running and swimming and taking a few supplements, then let me do it and let me explore. If I feel like I need to go back on the meds, then I'll go back on the meds. And I think we should just make the environment safe for
Safe.
everybody to explore
Yeah.
their options and celebrate that diversity. As you said, it's a bit paradoxical that we are all up for or neurodiversity. So let's just celebrate every flavor of like neurotypes. But then we just call each other out when there is
Yeah, but only if
some,
you agree with how I view it. And it's
well,
like,
exactly.
well,
Yeah. And I think,
that's not allowing people to be safe and authentic. I think you're right.
exactly.
Safety is key. Like what you've spoken about with the nervous system, and after years of not feeling safe, we need to make this place safe for people to unmask. And yeah, I think I'm glad that we've gone on that little tangent because I think that's really important. Sorry to interrupt, but are you getting bored of the mundane? Doing the same old thing day in, day out? Me too. It's not good for the old ADHD, that. And that's why I'm running away to the mountains this September to host another ADHD retreat. And I would love you to come. From the 11th to the 15th of September, we are heading to the French Alps, home of the Tour de France, for 5 whole bloody days. And this isn't your typical retreat because you're not typical. So whether you want to hike mountains at sunrise or sleep through breakfast, there is no right way to do this. All you need to do is come as you are and be as you are. So if you fancy untangling your ADHD with me in the magical mountains this September, head over to untangledco.com and let's get out of here. Right, so let's just play our little game of just guessing what our clients are for masking. So I just said to Dr. Miguel yesterday, I don't even know if this is going to work, but let's bring some items and both guess what mask this is. So the masks that we wear, and I've not really gone to as much effort as you, considering I called this on. But anyway, it's got the glasses. So have I got to guess what the glasses mean? What
Yeah,
mask it is, right?
of
So
course.
cool.
Silly question.
Oh man, I made up the game. What is it? Cool? Chameleon?
Well, I'm fine. Isn't like I'm
Fine.
always composed. I'm hiding the
I'm
eye
hiding.
contact. Protecting what is behind the glasses from what the outside world is giving me. I'm being emotionally neutral, kind of, in a way, there's that bit of, like I'm protecting my executive function.
Yeah. Avoiding. You're the avoider.
I'm avoiding in a way. Yeah. I'm kind of like protecting myself from the emotional exhaustion of rehearsing the responses that I think people expect from me. So I'm just kind of like not giving a shit and just hiding behind and I love these glasses because you cannot see my eyes as well.
I
So it's
know.
just like,
Yeah, you
fuck it.
can't
I'm
see
just
your
going
eyes.
to hide now.
Yeah, sorry, should have described them better, shouldn't I, for people that are just listening. So they're glasses that you cannot see.
Yeah.
I actually thought they wasn't real. I thought it was like an emoji. You know, like when you can get
No, no, no. It's not, no, I'm not an emoji. How very dare you?
Okay, so I'm gonna just put mine on. Just like the most obvious one. So I'm holding up. It's actually a marathon medal. So what do you think this is? What mask?
Is it because you've been a good girl?
Well, actually, that's a good one. But no, this wasn't what I was thinking. But I feel like that's
Okay.
a good one. The good girl one is, yeah. We should talk about that though. The good girl when you're like, I mean, I swear I played that role for fucking ages of like, especially in my family. I was like in my relationships, like I'll do the roast dinner every Sunday. I'll do the Christmas dinner every year for 7 years. And like all of these things, I'll pick my partner up after a night of him going out on the piss at 3 o'clock in the morning, even though I'm in bed. Like I did that in an extreme way. I played that role pretty well.
But that's not the medal. So what's the medal?
The medal is the overachiever.
All right. Yeah, completely.
And I never even knew this was a mask until like after the
Yeah.
ADHD diagnosis. I was just like, oh my God. So, when you don't feel enough, you feel like you weren't smart enough, and then you chuck yourself into overachieving. What is this? one of the reasons why I ended up doing this. And also, well, I'd go and do like random things like jump out of planes for charity, again, the good girl mask as well. And, overwork, go and do loads of bloody training courses. I think that's why you see so many of us doing training courses and not
Of
actually ended up
course, it's
finishing
like
them.
why I've been to university like 6 times. It's like you're
Six
not, and
times.
I'm like,
Oh my God.
and I'm thinking, I kind of like keep toying with the idea. Even back in 2012, when I was looking at neuroscience degrees, uh, and I was thinking, oh, shall I do neuroscience? Shall I do psychology? And like, oh, can I combine the two? Can I do like neuropsychology? But that's like, was like, because neuropsychology is like a regulated profession as well. And you need to do like, I don't know, like whole year of like practice in the NHS or something. And like, so anyway, it was too complicated. And I thought, oh no, I'll just do neuroscience. And then I keep thinking back to like, oh, I need to do psychology. And my other half keeps saying, no, you're not going back to university. You're taking the pace now.
Yeah. It's that driving that I think that's a hard one to knock on the head is like
You're
overachie-.
hiding behind your busyness. That's one flavor of the overachiever. Another one is like trying to put, I think we talked about this as well in another episode, trying to put a meeting with somebody in a calendar and it's like, I can do next week, like 1:15 to 3, and then I cannot do again until like the 10th of August. And like,
Do you know what someone was saying to me? That they had an email and it's like they started the email with, "I'm just so busy at the moment."
I know. Or like, you meet somebody and it's like, oh, are you busy? And I'm thinking, yeah, I'm really busy. Yeah, I love it.
I'm
I'm just
sitting out
like,
watching Netflix. And do you know what else I was thinking about the overachiever is that day-to-day life as well. It's like if you go to say Pilates, you're trying to overachieve and do the advanced
of
option all the
course,
time.
yeah. Yeah, you're doing the yoga training and when I did my yoga training, like, in 1702 BC, I had one of my mentors was Iyengar teacher training. So,
Yeah.
so we had to hold the pose for a long time. I was there holding the bloody triangle for like,
Oh gosh.
3 hours. My arms were falling just because I wanted the woman to come to me and say, oh, well done, Miguel. What a beautiful triangle. Oh, your Trikonasana is fabulous, darling. Oh, thank you,
Yeah.
darling.
We're like punishing ourselves
I
to
know.
overachieve.
Yeah,
And I remember
completely.
my teacher said, "Oh, you're such an overachiever," and I was like, "Yeah, I'm such an overachiever."
I
And now I'm
know.
like, "Oh
And
my God, that's actually a mark."
nutrition as well is like, it's not good enough to just lose 1 kilo. You need to lose like 5 kilos. There's like 1 kilo is not enough. It's like, oh, how many supplements are you taking? Oh, I don't take 2 supplements. I take 10 supplements. I don't know. How many hours do you fast? Oh, I fast 18 hours because people who fast 12 hours only is not good enough. It's that
Oh my God, yeah.
it just goes, it has so many ramifications on so many areas of life. It's
Yeah, it's
like,
quite dangerous, isn't it, the overachiever, really? I think that's
yeah,
been my most dangerous mask, to be quite honest with you.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Definitely. What
What
other
about
item?
what about this one?
What is the plug? It's a adapter plug.
Yeah.
I'm really shit at this game. Oh, adapting. I'm gonna
You know what?
say chameleon again.
Have you noticed, like, even I noticed this as well, especially if I'm in Spain and like I I don't do it so much like in the UK. So
Mimicking.
I
No?
don't go, yeah, I don't go to Newcastle and like take on like a Geordie accent. I do it in Spain a lot. It's like, if I am in like a region and they have like a special way of speaking, like my mom and dad are from the south. Like if I go to the south, I'll say some things that I would normally, some words that I don't use. It's like you've got like if you're Scottish and you say we instead of like small or something, and you just like start using that all the time just to like blend in. So it's kind of or even like how you dress as well. So it's almost like, oh, you're going to Ibiza. So you suddenly need to like, just go like Ibiza
Yeah, you mimic where you are.
outfits because you don't want to be like, too out of place, even if you're not into wearing that anymore, but like, you just feel the push to
Not
actually just
dressing the
go and
same.
wear something.
Oh my God, I feel like that is definitely, and especially when you're growing up, like you say, teenage years, I remember doing that, definitely putting on voices and using like words and tones the same as the people around me.
Yeah. And I
Like,
think
I don't know,
it's a lot of RSD as well. It's like fear of
yeah,
rejection. You're trying to blend in because if you blend in, you feel safe. So again, you just striving for your nervous system is wants to
wants to
feel
fit
that
in.
safety. Yeah, so you just plug in anywhere. You just like come to Europe, plug in on the two thing socket.
It's so, so true. And definitely in countries I can feel like when I'm in, I don't know, Bali, I put the Bali vibes on. When you're in, Amsterdam, it's Amsterdam vibes. I think you can see that as well all over the yoga industry. Like when you become a yogi, like, oh my God, you've got the certain leggings, you start eating the certain food, like, you know.
Yeah.
And I think as well, and when I think back to work environments, when I put on voices, I tried to be posh so much picking up the phone because I was pulled up on it a few times for my Cockney accent. And then I remember that
I
one
love your
day,
accent.
thank you. Most people don't like it. Well, I say most people in the corporate world, in the yoga world, I think a few people said. But one day I got pulled up at work and they really did say, like, can you just change the way you speak? And obviously back then, I'm younger, I'm like, oh my God, I need to speak better. And I got so good at it that one day my boss rang up and didn't know it was me. That's how much I managed to do that.
I know it's ridiculous, isn't it? But also, again, in like nutrition trends and kind of like, movements and almost like semi-cults, or movements within ADHD as well. So there is that Gabor Mate who writes about trauma. I love trauma and I love, reading about it and learning about the intersections between ADHD and trauma and eating behaviors and trauma. There's loads of really interesting science, but this guy seems to think that ADHD is a result of trauma. Like he tells his story that his mom left him in his baby bed when he was like only months old, and that because the war was going on and blah 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 blah, and that basically his nervous system picked up the trauma of abandonment, and he developed ADHD as a result of that. And I think there's no question that neglect, abandonment, abuse, you name it, any shape and flavor of trauma has an impact on neurodevelopment. And the brain is not just only developed in the womb, it's developed as well, when you've been born probably until you're 21, it's, but especially in the early years of life. And things are going to have an impact, but that doesn't mean that it, the that particular event is going to cause ADHD. There may be a relationship with the severity of your symptoms. Maybe if you did have a lot of experience of abandonment in early years of life, maybe that your symptoms are going to be more severe than in other cases. In eating disorders, for example, there's a lot of relationship between that kind of like situation of early life stress and your nervous system not feeling safe, and then you looking for safety in food. So there are a lot of things that we experience and I've experienced myself, like binge eating disorder. So it's just like binge eating right in the fridge, just looking for that safety.
Yeah.
So there is that a lot, but it doesn't mean that trauma causes ADHD. But then you have these people who are like so into that way of thinking that they cannot see that there are other ways of thinking, and then you kind of you feel pushed into fitting in one of those ways of thinking, and that's the plug. That's just like trying to shift yourself into a movement that
Big
you
shift.
think,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm going to fit in here, because otherwise I'm protecting myself from the grief of and the rejection of not being accepted, because most people seem to be talking about this. And in the persona that I'm making myself to be, that is maybe more alternative, more, I don't know, attuned with that kind of stuff, then that is what I fit into, more than maybe thinking that ADHD is a bit more complex and it's not just down to trauma. So I'm going to fit into that. So that's where I see safety. There's a lot of this going on in loads of different areas of life.
Yeah. And this is it. It's going back to that in between people having their own, being able to have their own opinion on things and not be one or the other. Like seeing both sides of
Exactly.
the
Like
coin.
if you
There's
were to
very
believe,
rarely people talking about the middle ground of things.
exactly,
Even
and
in
also
politics, like it's
accept
just everything's extreme.
accepting people. So if you told me right now, well, actually, I do believe that theory, I'm certainly not going to hate you. I'm probably not going to agree with you on that, but I don't need to call you out on it or to hate you as a person,
You put down the
because
phone call.
exactly, or just like cancel you because you disagree with me on something that, we might agree on another 100 things. So we're not going to agree on everything. So
No.
yeah.
But the underlining of it all is kindness, isn't it? And this is where I think spiritual, like, I know we're both quite spiritual, and again, not to the extreme. Yeah, there's no extremes there. We're just quite spiritual people. Like, we believe in certain things, and I think that helps have these views of not being so extreme and judging others for what they have and how they show up in the world. And I think that's what creates safer environments. I know within my clinic, I try and do this all the time. It's just to create a safe environment for people to just come as they are. Right, so we're running out of time. So my last one was this, and we've already spoke about it, but I just want you to see if you can guess it. It's a thank you card.
Yeah, is it people pleasing?
Yeah, I used to send thank you cards to everyone for everything. And once on one day, my partner was like, "You've sent them a thank you card for sending you a thank you card." This is ridiculous. But actually, that could be the good girl thing as well. So there we go. I thought that was a funny one.
Yeah, and I've got a last one as
Oh
well
yeah,
that
go
is
on, do a last
it's a
one.
similar flavor to that you
Peach.
just said.
I don't know. Perfection. The perfect peach.
Yeah, it could be
Peachy
perfection, which is
bum.
another thing. Yeah, but it could be um always helpful, always nice, super wholesome, super nice, that kind of like
Yeah.
version of yourself that I think it could be like the good boy, the good girl, never speaks out of turn and all of that kind of stuff.
Agreeable, isn't it? And also, I think about when I think about how I viewed sex as a woman, I was doing that. Like I wouldn't sleep around. This is how I was, brought up. Like, oh, you can only have sex with your boyfriend, and they have to wait a certain amount of time before you have sex. Like that's that as well, isn't it? Like,
There is that, or you can sleep around and still kind of like not actually say what you want and actually just feel
exactly.
even
Yeah.
disappointed because you slept around. So there is the guilt of sleeping around that, the shame that goes with it if you feel it. And then there is the unmet need that maybe what you needed in that sexual relationship was not met because you were just like so nicey that you just went with what the other person wanted.
Yeah, we're agreeing in
You
the
could have had
bedroom.
like 10 guys in a week, but not got what you actually needed. So
So
there is
true.
that. Yeah.
Love that.
So, and that's quite appropriate with the peach as well. It's like quite a nice peach.
Which I know. Oh my god, this is so funny. Right. So we haven't really shared any. We've shared a lot of like. We've spoken a lot about like how we've sort of stepped forward with our masking, but as we said, it's not really a guidebook, is it? So I feel like what taking away. I think I might just start with sort of what I think is always needed, and it's that awareness, right? But people wouldn't be here listening to the podcast, I don't think, if you hadn't started building awareness, and then you know compassion, but also not forcing the unmasking and just choosing areas where you want to, you know, ask those questions about who am I and what do I want. And I think that's the big one, is how often in our lives have we done that before our ADHD diagnosis? And actually being able to use ADHD as a vehicle to do that is the most important thing, and not again have to identify so much with the ADHD label that you then mask again, but use it as a real great, it's quite exciting when you think about it like that. Like, getting this, diagnosis, self or official, really does enable us to finally choose instead of just respond to what.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity for growth if you take it that way. And again, you could be more spiritual, less spiritual. Is it even spiritual? It's like just a way to refer to things. But at the end of the day, masking is you're camouflaging. You want to blend in. You don't want to stick out. Why? Because you're suppressing traits that you feel people have told you that you're too much for. It could be that, you're too impulsive, you're too fidgety, you're always late because of maybe, time perception differences. you may be too loud for some people, and you try and like fit in, and you go into a group and suddenly you're not speaking so loud, or you're dumbing down the way you dress or something, or all of these things that we do. And in doing that, basically, because your brain is wired to be like that, because you're not choosing to be ADHD, your brain is
No.
wired to work in that way, but you're trying to fit into the norm, into this idea of neuronormativity. What is the society expecting you to behave like? Basically, you're inhibiting how you're suppressing how the natural way that your brain is supposed to be working. And that over time, what ends up being like is your brain stressing out, because it's a machine that you're kind of like clogging with bits. So the cogs and the wheels don't actually flow naturally. You keep
No.
like putting, spanners in there that actually make the machine break. And in the end, you can end up being quite burnt out by it. And a lot of people have these stories that you talk to different ADHDers and say, oh, well, I was doing X, Y, and Z until I got really burnt out. I was doing this and that until I got really exhausted. There's a lot of people that I've talked to that have these same stories, that you keep behaving in a certain way until your system breaks. You feel ill, you feel exhausted, you feel stressed out, you feel
Mm.
whatever, and then you realize, wow, this is breaking point. But it doesn't need to be like that for everybody. Is
Need to
if you
get to
have
that. No.
yeah, if you have a diagnosis, you have the opportunity to do things at your own pace, things that feel safe for you. It could be tiny baby steps. It could be a massive reveal. I'm going to go on Instagram and tell the whole world.
Yeah, and if that's what you want to do it. That's it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
I always say it feels like letting the dog off the lead.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, like I feel like when I let myself just be and my brain go and, respond to just be who I am without masking in those moments where I notice it after, it feels like I've just let the dog off the lead and I've just
It's
got
a
a bit.
good one, because you need to trust the dog to come back. And if you're
Yeah.
gonna stress out because you think that your dog is never gonna it doesn't have a good enough recall, or is gonna go into a field that there's a farmer there and you're gonna have trouble with it
Yeah,
or
we're going to
whatever.
go and get ourselves in some trouble.
Exactly. Or there's gonna be another dog and there's gonna be like a riffraff. Or if you don't trust your dog, then you're not gonna do it. So you need to trust the dog. You need to trust your ADHD self to
Yeah.
come back to your whole self in a way, and then you can let it out and then come back and feel, actually, that felt really good. I'm going to do that more often. I'm going to go into a work meeting and talk about my ADHD and feel safe about it. But equally, you shouldn't feel pushed to talk about it if you don't feel safe. So shouldn't be this kind of like push. This is how you unmask. This is
No.
how you do X, Y, and Z. I think everybody's going to be different, and we should celebrate that diversity and encourage people to embrace things at their own pace.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think it's ever good to mask?
Well, I think sometimes it can be useful, and if
Mm.
you have the skill, why not? Because I
Yeah.
don't think, you know, I'm like, my mom says always to me, you and your sister, you just don't see the bad in people. It's like, we tend to trust people and then stop trusting when we've been burned, as
Yeah.
opposed to some people don't trust and then they need to build the trust. We kind of like, I'm a bit like the opposite. I trust until I feel, unless there is like a really intuitive thing in there that tells me, oh, I don't like this person, and then I don't bother. Now, so if you are in a situation where you don't really judge properly, you haven't got this kind of like 100% intuition as to what is going on. You're reading the room, and you can use a bit of masking to help you gather more information. I don't see why you cannot mask. I don't see why you cannot just use that to your advantage. And it doesn't mean being fake. It means that you're not just coming into the room and going, hey, I'm ADHD and and I love life.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? So it could be you're guarding yourself a little bit just to see, I'm going to read the room and see how do I want to fit in here or not? And it does, and you do it in a way that doesn't deplete you as well. And I think that is the thing, if you just do it sporadically in a way that allows you to watch what might be going on and then harness the tools that you need to decide, okay, well, is this suitable? Is this a tribe that I want to be part of? Is this a situation that's going to fill my cup? Or is this something that's going to deplete me? And I'm going to be surrounded by people that spread negativity as opposed to the positivity that I need in my life and the safety that I need in my life. I don't see why you shouldn't do it.
Yeah. And I think that's again like because when I do the training for yoga teachers and they talk about unmasking, and I was like, using the mask to feel confident, in areas of your teaching until you feel like you can show up fully as yourself as a teacher isn't a bad thing, right? And
Well,
that's why we
exactly.
work on small things. Like it could be starting with the music that you play, it could be the way that you do a flow, it could be just part of the flow, right? It could be an introduction that you've done and you've never done it before where you unmask or whatever. And I think, like you said, that creates safety if we can do it in small ways. And actually, when I coach, we don't go, right, we're going to start unmasking and this is what we're going to do. It's like, right, what area do you want to start with in your life? What do you want from that? And why is that important to you? And we work with that. And that's taken, instead, we're just taking authentic action to this, create this system in your life in an unmasking way, because now you're doing it differently to how you've ever done it before. But it's all small steps. So there will still be elements of masking that are needed in that, because you don't want to go out and, like you say, unmask fully. I mean, some people can immediately, but if you don't feel safe in some of those environments, that's going to have the opposite effect again, isn't it?
Well, exactly. And people read the room themselves. They are scanning for safety themselves. And if you are the authority in that room and you're letting them know that you're panicking, it's not going to, you need to be honest. And if you are genuinely worried about somebody, you need to do something about it. But equally, if you're panicking because somebody might actually just do the pose wrong, or, they might fall, well, if they are not going to break anything, people do fall doing
Yeah, I
certain
always say you've
things, and
got
it's
to
part of the
keep
process.
sending crows
But
until
if you're being
fly.
completely, if you're trying to be over controlling, and then in that comes out as being panicky,
Panic,
and
yeah.
people are going to pick up your energy and they're going to panic themselves. So it's, so in that
No one
sense,
wants to stress out yoga class.
well, exactly. So in that sense, is that masking? And if it is, well, fine. At the end of the day, you need to relay safety to your students. You cannot just like come in and say, "Oh my God, I'm just so panicky today. I don't want everybody to like break a leg because this is a very difficult sequence." And you cannot do that.
Yeah, so true. So have you got anything else you want to share for people to take away before I found another quote, unless you've got one?
No, I haven't got a quote or anything much that I want to share. I think we've talked a lot about different aspects, and I think we've gone in a couple of tangents, but I think we come back to the same kind of conclusion that we've come back to in other episodes as well. Kindness is very important to yourself and to others,
Yeah,
and I feel
definitely.
that in any community you need to respect the fact that people move at different speeds, and you may be a veteran in your acceptance of your neurodivergence, and then it may be boring to you that somebody's still referring to themselves as being neurodiverse because you've moved on and now you say neurodivergent and all of this, and okay, well done, but you cannot push the same standards to other people because they may be completely new. It's like me expecting people to know all about being gay if they've just come out, and they've never had sex with another man. And then I expect them to know everything. And like, I've been having sex for like, oh my God, like so many years now. So, it's like, so I cannot expect them to just be the same as me. It's like everybody is learning or learning a language. If you've done like 5 years of learning, Chinese, and all of a sudden somebody's just like learned it for 3 months, you cannot expect them to be at the same level. So just be a bit more, be a bit kinder with people on their journeys, and that, I think that's part of celebrating the diversity that we are part of.
Definitely. And it's like understanding over judgment. Where can I notice the moments where, if we want to unmask and feel safe in unmasking, where can we do that for other people? So when we're about to judge or, tell people what to do, maybe a power and a pause in that moment and say, how can I understand? How can I be more curious about actually where they might be at? Is probably like a way to sum that up, isn't it? Like understanding versus judgment.
Yeah.
So this is obviously Brené Brown talks about belonging so much, and I haven't found the actual quote that I wanted to share because I don't find it, but this one's great. So true belonging is the spiritual practice of believing in and belonging to yourself so deeply that you can share your most authentic self with the world and find sacredness in both being a part of something and standing alone in the wilderness.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Good old Brené Brown.
Good old Brené Brown. She knows a thing or two about belonging.
Innit?
Yeah. So, thanks, Dr. Miguel. You can get back to the beach now. Thank you so much for joining me on the ADHD Untangled podcast. I hope that these episodes are inspiring you to step forward with confidence despite the struggles that you face with ADHD. If you want to find out more about ADHD coaching, retreats, trainings, then check out my Instagram, ADHD_untangled, or my website, untangledco.com. Let's get untangled and show the world what we are made of.